Hi there, Working Homeschool Mom. This is Charlotte from Charlotte Jones 24/7 and My Little Homeschool. And this is episode number 67 of the Strike a Balance podcast for Working Homeschool Moms. And today I speak to Lila Wohlwend, who is a best-selling author, investor, business owner, and homeschooling mom. And I really enjoyed this episode because it just confirmed to me once again how homeschooling and the flexibility it offers allows children to deep dive into topics that interest them and gives them the opportunity, the space to try lots of things that they might not have as much time to do if they were to go to public school. I'm sure you're going to enjoy this as much as I did. And if you have kids who are interested in entrepreneurship, then it's definitely a must listen. But before we get to the episode, I'd be ever so grateful if you could rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. It just means more working homeschool moms can find it. And in that way, we can build a strong community together. Thank you so much. Hello and welcome to the Strike a Balance podcast for working homeschool moms. This is Charlotte Jones. I'm a homeschool coach and homeschooling mom of twin boys. I know it can feel really overwhelming to keep all the balls in the air all the time. So each week I chat about tips and strategies for being a happy and thriving working homeschool mom that you can implement in your life too. I also speak to awesome and inspiring women who manage to juggle homeschooling and work successfully and find out what their secrets are. Be sure to check out my time audit and mindset challenge in the show notes and sign up to my newsletter for lots of cool freebies. And if you ever need to chat, please book in a session with me. I'm so excited for you to be here and I hope you'll get so much value out of this episode. So let's get started. Are you looking for a new math curriculum? Well, I'm thrilled to introduce our favorite math curriculum to you. CTC Math specializes in providing online video tutorials that take a multi-sensory approach to learning. Favorably reviewed in Kathy Duffy's 102 Top Picks and the Old Schoolhouse Crew review, the lessons are short and concise to help your children break down concepts and appreciate math in a whole new way. The lessons are taught the traditional way and not to a test. Each one of the video tutorials is taught by an internationally acclaimed teacher, Pat Murray, who is renowned for teaching math concepts in a simple, easy-to-understand way and in only a few minutes at a time. Using a multi-sensory approach means having the combination of effective graphics and animation synchronized with the voice of a friendly teacher together with a practical assessment. This three-pronged attack makes learning so much easier and more effective. Even students who struggled with math are getting fantastic results, and ones who were doing okay before are now doing brilliantly. Visit ctcmath.com today to start your free trial. CTC Maths is generously offering my listeners an amazing special. Go to www.ctcmath.com/MLH to get a half-price discount plus a bonus 6 months for free. That's ctcmath.com/MLH. Today I'm chatting to Lila Wohlwend, who is a best-selling author, investor, business owner, and homeschooling mom. She and her husband integrated family business and investing. Their kids started investing and buying real estate at age 7 without using any of their parents' money or credit. Lila now helps other families recognize their own kids' ability to do more than they imagined so they can also achieve amazing results at any age. Family Success Triangle is the book she and her husband wrote to teach other parents the lessons they use to raise limitless kids. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today, Lila.
Thank you for having me on your show.
This is going to be a really, really interesting topic. But before we get into that, maybe you can chat a little bit about why you chose to homeschool.
Well, when I was in school, they kept telling me I was such a good student, but the problem that I realized is I'm memorizing and regurgitating information and I could get an A on a test. But when it came to applying those lessons in my real life, I couldn't do it. And when I met my husband, well, the man that would become my husband in college, I learned from him what real learning was, because he could take a topic from science and apply it to cooking, or something from math and apply it to English. And it was just, at first I thought he was just this genius. And he just kind of laughed. He goes, no, I'm actually learning this information and here's what you should be doing. Because he would watch me cramming for a test. and then tell me how useless that was and how I wasn't going about it the right way. And I couldn't wrap my brain around that because I'd gone so long getting good grades and doing what they told me. And when I started watching how he did things and how much more he understood and could use the lessons, I knew that if I ever had kids, I wanted to give them a totally different experience. And so after my husband and I left college, we started educating ourselves with, real estate conferences and investing conferences and business conferences. And I was learning so much more from there. And I would go home and I would apply all these lessons and actually understand them. And I thought, if I ever have kids, I want to teach them these topics. And so when we finally did have kids, I convinced my husband that we should homeschool. And he finally agreed. And we started teaching our kids literally from moment one, all these things we were learning. Frequently they were learning with us. They would be at a conference with us, or they'd be listening to the same CDs and later podcasts and things that we would be learning from. And, we wrote about it in our book, but it really all started when my oldest was about 5 years old. And he went up to my husband and he said, "Dad, I think it's time for me to start investing. What should I invest in?" And my husband took a moment to get over the shock of his 5-year-old asking him about this. And he looks down at his son and says, "Devin, you should invest in what you know." And Devin takes a moment as a 5-year-old and thinks about that. And he goes, "But Dad, the only thing I know are Legos." And my husband kind of laughed a little bit and he goes, "Well, find a way to invest in Legos." And my son literally took the next couple days and his brain's churned, and he finally comes up with this idea that, Lego retires these sets. And so if he buys a set and holds on to it until they retire it, he can sell it and sell it for a higher price. And for a 5-year-old to come up with that, we thought that was impressive. And so he attempted that, and he made some mistakes, and he learned a whole bunch of things. And he talks about that, because that was a big moment for him, even at the age of 5. And when he realized that even as a kid, he can start investing, he started learning about all sorts of investments. Like he was learning about, investing in gold and silver. And then he started looking into real estate. And at the age of 7, he looks at us, he goes, "I want to invest in real estate." And we're like, "Okay, I don't know how we're going to do this." But we wanted to, give our kids every opportunity. So if they were interested in something, we weren't going to tell them no. Instead of saying, "You can't do that because you're a kid," we wanted to say, "How can we do that?" And so it was kind of a mind shift for us with him. And so we figured out how to get him some education and to get him started. And really it took off from there. And when his brother then got to the age of 7 and wanted to do the same thing, we're like, now we've got 2 kids that want to be investing in real estate, and how do we make all this happen? And we realized that the more we integrated them into our business and into our investing, the more they were learning from it. And then as we learned how to teach them about it, we actually got better at running our teams of people that were in our businesses, and it made our investing easier. And so they all kind of blended together to make these amazing results. And people kept asking us, how did you get your kids to do this? Which is not a one-sentence answer, unfortunately. So we actually had to write the book just to give them the information of how did we raise our kids? How did we get all this accomplished? And how did that benefit, the rest of our life? And once we wrote the book, then people had us, coming to speak to their groups. And what I'm learning is kids have dreams, these big, audacious dreams that they want to accomplish. And they really want to do it as a kid, but they have all these adults that tell them, well, you can't do that yet because you're still a kid. But when you grow up, and what's really cool is when they hear my kids talking about that and they go, I really want to start this business, or I want to do this, or I want to be investing in real estate too. And you hear these kids say these things and their parents are amazed because they don't sometimes know that their kids are so motivated to go do something, especially something that you don't hear about kids doing very often. And what I'm finding is my kids are not abnormal. There are kids out there doing amazing things. There's a 9-year-old that started a beauty business that by the time she was 18 had really taken off and was doing huge things. There was an 11-year-old that created lollipops that even their dentist was happy with. And there's a teenager that has her own fashion line. So all these kids are out doing these amazing things. At this point, I want to get other families talking to their kids about these kinds of things and finding out, what do their kids want to do? How can we as parents help them achieve that, even if they're not even old enough to drive yet? What I'm finding is parents are really interested in this, and they really do want to get their kids started, but it can be a little intimidating. How do you get your kids, doing these things that, the world isn't used to kids doing? And so the challenge really is, how can we help our kids do this? How can we teach them the lessons they need to know so that they can accomplish these crazy, wild ideas?
I think it's such an amazing thing to do is to include your kids, like you said, in your business, in your life, because they learn so much. And also, the thing is with the big dreams is that they're also not as afraid to fail as we are as adults. As adults, you're like, oh my gosh, what happens if I fail? But kids, if they're given the opportunity to try out these big, audacious dreams without the fear of failure, I mean, it's such an amazing thing to be able to give them.
It truly is. And it is amazing. They have so many less bad habits to overcome as a kid. So when they start doing something, like, they just go after it. They don't have the same, fears or concerns that we might have as adults, which, as parents, we kind of worry about more than they do. But it's so awesome to see them, just kind of go for it. And then once they achieve it and they get that look of, yes, I did it. And it's such an amazing feeling as a parent to know that your kid went out and did something that somebody else would have been too afraid to do, and they succeeded at it. And it's amazing to watch your kids do that. And you're right, when they make a mistake, they just look at you and go, okay, well, how can I not make that mistake again? Okay, well, that's a great way to approach it, because it's not about whether we do it perfectly. It's about, how do we learn the lesson and then do it better the next time?
Absolutely. I mean, that is an amazing life lesson just right there, just that thing in itself. Absolutely. And maybe before we go a little bit deeper, maybe you can tell us a little bit about kind of how you homeschool, maybe the methods, what a typical homeschool day looks like.
I'm not sure there is what I would call a typical day, especially with our family traveling. The nice thing about homeschooling is it gives us so much freedom. I mean, we can teach our kids anywhere, so it doesn't matter what country we're in or what state we're in. School can happen anywhere. And I like the fact that we can teach them anything that we want them to learn. For example, I wanted to teach them financial education. I wanted to teach them about business and investing and money, because I never had that growing up. And when I finally learned that this information was out there, it was amazing to me, and it was such a big help. And so I wanted to make sure they had the lessons I wanted them to learn, and homeschooling allows me to do that. And what's even better is I don't have to be the one teaching them all the time, but I can pick their teachers so they can learn from some of the best in the world. My kids wanted to learn about real estate, so we went and they were learning from Robert Kiyosaki and Ken McElroy, who are two of the, top names, at least here in the US, for learning about real estate. And when they wanted to learn about sales, we introduced them to Blair Singer, and they got to learn from him. And so their teacher can be the best teacher in the world for whatever topic they're interested in. And what's really interesting is, sometimes kids get interested in things that we as parents, we don't really know a lot about. But the cool thing about it is, if we know our kids are interested in that and we can find a teacher for it, like, we can learn right alongside them. And so we might be both students in the same class sitting side by side. And when we leave that class, our family has so much to talk about, because we can talk about all the lessons we just learned and how we can apply it and what that's going to do for us. And so I think it actually makes us closer as a family. And what I'm finding is a lot of homeschool families feel that way about pretty much every topic that they're going over, because they're doing it together. And I think that's a powerful part of homeschooling, is the fact that families get to be together and learn together and do all these things together.
Absolutely. Yes. I love that about homeschooling as well. I really, really do. It's definitely one of the biggest benefits to homeschooling. Generally, people think that investing is something for adults. So, what kind of challenges might families have to overcome, I guess, in terms of mindset and also practically, if their kids want to do something that the world expects only adults to do?
They are definitely going to face challenges. If you ask my kids, one of the challenges that they face doing real estate is they can't drive. So if they want to go look at a property, they have to find somebody that will drive them, whether that's me or a grandparent or a friend. And so they had to overcome, just, how do I actually get out and look at this investment to make sure that it's something I want to put my money into? And so that was one of the challenges. One that a lot of parents find, whether their kids are interested in real estate or business, is kids signing contracts. I don't know how it is in every country, but here in the US, a contract with a minor or somebody that's under 18, it's legal, but it's not enforceable. Meaning if the kid changes their mind, next year and just doesn't want to do it anymore, the person that got into that contract with them can't enforce the contract. So my kids had to overcome that whole problem of, how do I tell all these other adults that I'm going to follow through on what I say, and I'm always going to do what's in a contract. And so they had to build a reputation for always doing what they say and always following through on their promises and never ever backing down. And that was a hard one for them, especially at a really young age, because they never considered not following through on a contract until an adult said something to them about, well, I understand this is how this would work. And my kids were floored. Like, they just didn't know that they would back out of a contract. It wasn't something that they would do. So they actually had to learn that, yes, there are people in the world that would do that. And how do I overcome, the reputation these people have given kids, and make it so that people will trust me and like me enough to do business with me, even if I'm a kid. And so that's one of the things that most of these kidpreneurs that get involved, they've got to overcome that. They've got to, essentially build their own reputation of, hey, I do things right. I follow through on what I say. And, here's how you can know that. And here's my list of references. And so kids are going to have to face that as a challenge. And the nice thing is, if parents are learning along with their kids, they're going to get to know some of the other people in the same industries. And those people can be your best ally. For the real estate that my kids are in, all these conferences we go to, they were some of the only kids in the audience. And so all of the adults took notice of them. And what I thought was really awesome is pretty much everybody was cheering them on. They say it takes a village to raise a child. Well, if your child's doing something kind of out of the ordinary, people really pay attention to that. And they're very supportive of it when they see them doing things the right way and seeing that they're succeeding at what they're doing. And it was amazing to me that, how many adults were completely behind my kids. We have a lady that's big in our area called Vina Jones Cox, and she, runs the National Real Estate Summit every year. And my 9-year-old son went up to her and said that he was going to get his Ohio Professional Housing Provider certification and be the youngest person to ever achieve it. And, this lady is a lady that most people are a little intimidated to talk to, but as a 9-year-old, he didn't realize that. He didn't think about that. He just marched up and told her, here's what I'm going to accomplish. Here's what I'm going to do. And she just looked at him for a moment and she started laughing. She goes, Devin, I have no doubt you're going to do that. And so Devin did accomplish that, and she was cheering him on. And then, of course, having some sibling rivalry, my younger son, Ethan, decided he was going to get his certification even at a younger age than even his brother did. And he accomplished that. And so she was cheering them both on at that point. But it was so nice that other adults were telling them how much they believe in them and really supporting them in their journey. So that you really need that network, because it's one thing for a parent to say something, but when you have someone else saying the same thing, the kids are much more likely to believe that and take that into heart. So, and sometimes they'll explain a concept to my kids in a better way than even I could have done. So it's nice to have that extra support and different perspective.
I love that. That's an amazing story because, like you said, it's just approaching life without all the baggage that comes along with being an adult. I think that's so cool. I love that.
I think a lot of times we talk about people being in their comfort zones, and, they fit themselves into this little box where they feel comfortable. And what's really nice is my kids talk to Pete Fortunato and Bill Cook, and they have this saying, what box? Because the whole goal is to become limitless, to not have just a comfort zone, but to just do the things that need done to get you where you want to go without having all these limitations in your head of, I can't do it, or I'm not smart enough, or I'm not whatever. And my kids didn't grow up knowing that there was any kind of limitation because we didn't teach them that. But once they heard what that meant and they learned the term what box, that became something that they really embraced, because they want to see, it doesn't matter if it's another kid or another adult, they want to see everybody be limitless and just go out and chase their dreams and accomplish them and not have all these limiting things in their head that are holding them back.
Okay, so how can parents actually help their kids get involved with something that they might find intimidating or they might know nothing about? What are some practical things that they can do to get their kids into investing, for example, or real estate and things like that?
So the first thing is find out what your kids want. that's one of the things that I'm finding. We go out and we talk to these groups, and we start with the adults and kids in one group, and then we split them up for an hour. And my two kids and I take the kids into a different room. And when I start talking to them, it's amazing what they'll tell me they're interested in that they haven't talked to their parents about. They've got these. I had a dad that was just sure his daughter hated real estate, and he really was building this portfolio, and he wanted to be able to pass that along to her. But at the age of 16, he thought she was not interested in real estate, and the problem wasn't that she didn't like real estate. It's that she didn't want to do the renovation of a property. She didn't want to be in there swinging the hammer and repairing the drywall or painting the walls. She just wanted to be the one buying it and directing how it should go. So she had the interest, just not the same direction her dad thought. And so sometimes the kids and the parents really just need to get on the same page about here's what their kid wants, here's how they want to do it. And then it just becomes a matter of how do we help them make that happen. And sometimes, especially if it's a topic like that a parent doesn't know anything about, there's going to be education on both sides. And again, if you don't know the topic that your kid wants to get involved in, it's so easy to find how you can learn about that and just go sit in the audience with them. The education you're going to get is going to be so worth it, and it's going to help you help your kids. My kids got interested in cryptocurrency, and I didn't know anything about that. I'm not as technology advanced as they are, but they were fascinated by it. And so in order to help answer their questions or help them look at different things, I actually was learning right alongside them so that I could figure out, is this something that, I think is a good investment? What questions do I have? What questions should they be asking? And so learning together actually became something fun. So whether your child ends up investing in that particular thing or doing that particular endeavor, the education is never wasted because you can always take that information and apply it to something else. For example, if they are interested in starting, a dog walking business, and you don't know anything about dogs and they don't know anything about dogs, and you guys start learning about it, and then they decide, you know what, I don't think dogs are for me. Maybe I want to do, something else. And then they pick the concepts they learned about animals or about business or about how they need to set things up can be applied to any other business. So even if they start in one direction and change, take some of those same lessons and apply them because you've already learned some of those things. That will help propel them towards whatever new endeavor they do want to do. And so I've always said, as long as you can take what you're learning in one area and apply it to another, it's always a great thing.
Absolutely. But I think it's kind of an analogy for homeschooling as well, is you allow your kids to lead what they're interested in. You allow them to make mistakes. You allow them to change their minds. I think that is the best kind of education because they take ownership of the education themselves and they deep dive into things that they're interested in. And I mean, when you go to public school, maybe you're forced to do things that you're really not interested in. So you kind of skim through them. So I think it's really such a fantastic way to learn and also kind of an approach to learning in general, I think.
We definitely could not have done what we did without homeschooling. And I love the fact that, Devin got frustrated with algebra at one point, and he says, "I'm never going to use this." And I just started laughing. I'm like, "You're in real estate. You use algebra every day." He goes, "Well, how?" And so I started pulling out these examples of, okay, you want to put carpeting in this house, and here's how much it costs for, this part. And so he had to figure out, what's it going to cost to carpet this entire house? And I said, "You just use algebra to figure that out." And he sat there and he looked at it. He goes, that is algebra. He goes, "I didn't realize." And I said, "Okay, you hire your attorney and it's so much for the first hour and so much, a different amount for each additional hour." I said, "If he works for 10 hours, how much do you pay him?" And he gives me the answer. And I said, "Well, that's algebra." And so he started to get that all these things he's learning in these other classes completely apply to these topics he's interested in. And you're right, that's the great thing about homeschooling, because you're right there with your child. You know what they like, you know what their interests are, and you can apply what lessons they're learning to the things they are interested in so that they understand the concepts and understand how it helps them with the things that they want to do. And that's one of the things I love about homeschooling.
Absolutely. Yes. Fantastic. And just the deep diving, though, having the time, having the opportunity, given that space to deep dive into something is amazing as well. I love that about homeschooling. And finally, is there anything you're working on at the moment or anything you'd like to share? And where can people connect with you? Where's the best place to connect with you online?
So if they want to learn more about how we raised our kids and integrated business and investing with our family, they can look up Family Success Triangle on Amazon. We also have a website that talks about homeschooling and real estate investing, and that's clearskytrainer.com. We've got an Instagram and YouTube and Rumble channel, which is at Real Power Family. And obviously, if anybody has any questions, they can reach us through those media as well. I'm currently working on creating a curriculum to help other homeschooling or even regular school kids learn about financial education, and hopefully we'll get that introduced in the next year.
That is, I know a lot of people are looking for things like that. So that's going to be really, really fantastic. That's amazing. And obviously I'll link all your links in the show notes. Thank you so much for sharing such an interesting topic, Lila, and speaking about it with so much passion. It was really, really fantastic to hear your insights today, and it was really a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you very much for everything.
I really hope you enjoyed the episode. Drop me a DM on Instagram or post on the Working Homeschool Moms support group over on Facebook, and let me know what resonated the most with you. It would also be great if you could rate, review, and subscribe, or share the podcast with a working homeschool mom who might need it. It's my mission to support as many working homeschool moms as possible. Until next time, take care. Hi there, working homeschool mom. This is Charlotte from Charlotte Jones 24/7 and My Little Homeschool. And this is episode number 67 of the Strike a Balance podcast for working homeschool moms. And today I speak to Lila Wohlwend, who is a best-selling author, investor, business owner, and homeschooling mom. And I really